Hi everyone and welcome to the Professing Alls. This is the first, official video after the welcoming. And I wanted to read from Genesis chapter 1. Now, it's very interesting, Genesis chapter 1. A lot of people use particularly verse 26 and 27 to defend the Trinity, saying that God says, "Let us make man in our image." But I think you can actually get more precise than that. I actually think from the text, you can actually work out that there has to be a Trinity, even if this text didn't exist. And I'm going to show you from other parts of Genesis chapter 1 where we can find the Trinity. Now, firstly, go to verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Okay, so we got the first person of the Trinity, who here is referred to as God. Now, is this referring to the Father or the Son or the Spirit? Well, it's not referring to the Spirit because in verse 2, the Spirit is mentioned distinct from God, where it says, "The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters." Okay, so we got two persons of the Trinity. We got God and we got the Spirit. So where's the third person of the Trinity? Well, you've actually got to be quite precise looking at the verbiage that is used and the mode of the verbs that are being used. Now, look at verse 3 for a second. And God said, "Let there be light." Now, in Hebrew and a lot of other languages, there are a few different types of command that you can find, different sorts of commands. In English, we only have one. We have an imperative, but technically that's actually not true. We actually do have other types of commands, even though imperative is the most common. But thinking about English for a second, so we got imperative, so you're commanding someone in the second person. You're directing the command at them. Then you have what's called the cohortative, where you're sort of expressing an idea where we all should do this. It's like a command, but it's a little bit lighter than a command, but it's inclusive of yourself. So, for example, let's go watch the movies. Now, it's a command for the other person to go watch the movies, but go watch the movies with you together. And so you have a cohortative. And there is also a third person command, and we find this in Greek and Hebrew as well. So, for example, if I said, "Let him be loose," I'm commanding another person in the third person to be loose, but I'm commanding it to another person to make it happen. So that person has to make it happen that the other person is loose from prison, for example. So here, God said, "Let there be light." He doesn't say to the light. He doesn't speak to the light. He doesn't say, "Light be," which is what you would expect if he is commanding the light to come into existence. No, he has to be talking to someone else. Now, is he talking to the Spirit? Well, it's possible, but actually, the reason why the Spirit is here in the text, we actually don't get a specific reason as to why he's mentioned until you get later into Exodus 31 and 1 Kings 3 and 8, where the Spirit fills the people who are there to build the tabernacle or the components for the tabernacle or temple. And so we see here that the reason why the Spirit is here is because he is filling God with his wisdom in order to be able to create the temple. Now, I'm not saying that God the Father or God the Son needs a Spirit to be able to do that, but it's just part of God's nature. The Spirit fills those who are building sacred space, basically. And so he's doing that with the Father and the Son here. And so we have God commanding someone to let the light be. So there has to be another person that he's talking to. And you can actually find out who that other person is. So if you go to verse 6, it says, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. And God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse." So the one that made the expanse and separated the waters is named God. So God is commanding someone else to let there be an expanse and let it separate the waters. He's saying that to someone else, and that someone else is identified as God. So when we're reading the text, if you're not really paying attention, you think that this is actually the same person, but it's actually a different person of the Trinity that has to be doing this building. And so it makes sense when you get to verse 26, then God said, "Let us make man in our image." Well, the Holy Spirit is part of the creating process because he's filling God, the Father, and the Son in the creation process. But he's specifically talking to the other one, and he's now speaking in a cohortative sense. Now, he's part of the creating process. He's creating man, but along with someone else who has been creating along the whole way that he's already been talking to, which is Jesus, the Son of God. And so we see the Trinity very clearly here in Genesis. So if you actually pay attention to the verbiage, and the reason why this stood out to me and when this stood out to me was actually when I was going through the Septuagint, because I love reading Greek. I love reading a bit of Hebrew as well. I'm not as good at Hebrew as I am at Greek, but it really stuck out to me in the Greek that the translation that is used in the Septuagint of these verbs are definitely a third person command, and that's when it stood out to me that God has to be talking with someone. And so here in Genesis chapter 1, we see that the Trinity is very much present. We have all three persons of the Trinity, and we can work out who they are. All of them are God. There's one God, but three persons within that Godhead. And so I just wanted to share that with you as a bit of an encouragement. And there are other things in Genesis chapter 1 which I'd like to share about, perhaps in a later video, but this is a good start. So thanks for watching. I hope this is encouragement to you, and I hope that it's a blessing to you, and we'll see you next time.